The Spurs won the lottery, and victory.
Generational talent sitting there waiting to be had.
I'm trying to win a ring ASAP, so be ready.
Welcome to our 2023 NBA Mock Draft Show. The draft lottery is over, and it's the San Antonio Spurs who have won the chance to draft yet another generational big in Victor Wembanyama. I'm Cassidy Hubbarth, joined by Jonathan Givony and Bobby Marks. And Jonathan will be making our mock draft selections in this show. Bobby will be letting us know how these picks would fit with their new teams. So guys, not a whole lot of drama with the first overall pick in this particular draft, but Jonathan, with the number one pick, the floor is yours.
I'm taking Lithuanian wing Mantas Rubstavicius with the number one pick. I'm shocking the world here, bucking the trend. I think it's a wing league now. Big men are out of style in the NBA. Let's go Rubstavicius. I'm
going to remove your title, draft expert. You know that's not true for realsies. Where are you going?
We're going with Victor, and I'm loving it here because it's a wonderful fit for him. I know he's very excited. I spent a lot of time with him and his family out in France. They said publicly there's no wrong pick, but privately they were very, very worried tonight. And I think for him to end up in San Antonio, they're absolutely thrilled. It's very close to his agency's headquarters in Dallas. They have a very strong relationship with the San Antonio Spurs going back many years. They have a track record of developing big men, of European prospects in general. And I know that it's a very exciting night in the Victor Wembanyama family. And also just, at the draft party, which we saw Brian Windhorst at the Champs-Elysees, which I'm very jealous to be missing right now.
Bobby, what do you think of the fit for the Spurs?
How could you not love it? I mean, Pop was there with Tim Duncan, David Robinson. Now he's got Victor. He add him with Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson, two other young big wings. Ton of cap flexibility here moving forward. We'll see what they do this offseason. They got a boatload of draft picks to continue this retooling or rebuilding of this roster. I think it's going to be important as far as how they find or identify their point guard position. That's going to be a big thing for them to upgrade. They had Trey Jones running point this year, but I mean, talk about, it was worth it to go through a 21 or 22 win season when you were able to get the number one pick in the draft here. And it's a franchise changing player. And San Antonio has him for at least, 9-10 years, maybe even more.
Jonathan, as you mentioned, you recently spent time with Wemby in Paris for your SC Featured, and you've been talking about him all year. You've scouted him for years, but what are some new things that you learned catching up with him in person?
It was just very interesting to see how focused he is on being in the moment. He didn't want to think for even a second about a month in advance, 2 months in advance, what it's going to be like. He was so locked into his playoff run, his team. He's takes every loss very, very harshly. I remember after G League Ignite, they lost the first game. He was absolutely distraught. Watching him at the under-19 FIBA World Cup, him losing to USA. I mean, he says that loss haunts him every single day. And so I think he's coming into the NBA with the mindset of turning this franchise around and wanting to make the playoffs. He said it on the broadcast tonight, and I really think he means it. There's no more tanking anymore in San Antonio. Wemby and the Spurs are going to go for it next year.
Bobby, I just want to circle back just on the fit a bit. And we've talked about this. He is the highly anticipated, maybe the most anticipated draft prospect since LeBron James. How do you feel like the environment in San Antonio under Greg Popovich for at least, the foreseeable future will line up with all of the hype and attention that comes with Victor Wembanyama?
I mean, I think if we're looking at the Spurs to duplicate what happened with Tim Duncan and go into the finals 2 years after he was picked, I think we probably have to pump the brakes a little bit. I do think it probably accelerates the rebuild a little bit here because you have, as I said, with Victor and Keldon and Jeremy, they've got this boatload of flexibility here. I think it's going to be interesting where you play him. Right? Is he, can you, you've got Zach Collins as your 5 right now. Do you go out and maybe upgrade that position and have Victor, primarily playing as your 4 here, that certainly that big wing. But it's going to be interesting. if they didn't get the number one pick, we would say, oh, that's a team that teams are going to dump salary on. And I don't know if that's the case quite yet here. And as I said, like, there are still some needs as far as upgrades, and they've got to get some veterans there. That's going to be important. They've got Doug McDermott and Devontae Graham here, but it's going to be important to have some veterans in that locker room.
The big focus of the draft lottery, guys, was what was going to be the number one pick, which team was going to get that pick. I think the big focus for the draft is that 2-3 spot. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have you pick 2 and 3 here, Jonathan, because it seems it's a 2-man race between Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, correct?
I think so, but I do think that the way things evolve does leave some openings here. You know, I mean, I think Portland is really going to be studying what Charlotte decides to do. Charlotte could go Brandon Miller here. They could go Scoot Henderson. You know, people are going to say, okay, LaMelo Ball, that's your point guard of the future. The ball is in his hands. You don't need Scoot Henderson. And I sort of agree with that, but I do think that when you have such an explosive scorer like Scoot, he could make sense there too. But me personally, at this very moment, I have Brandon Miller at number 2. I just look at their wing rotation. It's just so poor right now. Terry Rozier and James Bouknight and Gordon Hayward, who is a shell of himself, and Oubre and Bryce McGowan. Brandon Miller is going to be basically the number one option from day one. LaMelo Ball is a naturally unselfish player who loves to pass the ball, and Brandon Miller is going to love being alongside him. It's going to give him an avenue to be a playmaker, to play pick and roll, to go get his own shot, to use his size from that 2-guard position, to create and shoot over the top, and also use his playmaking ability, because he's going to love, you know, LaMelo Ball just empowers you with the way that he moves it. And so I think that's a great combination. But I do think that, that Charlotte is going to look at Scoot, and if in that scenario, Portland would be very happy to have Brandon Miller. But let's say Brandon Miller goes to Portland, with Dame Lillard. I don't know about, Portland is very, very serious about continuing the Dame Lillard era. People want, them to trade him away and, get a package of picks and all that. They're not feeling that whatsoever. They're going to continue to move forward with Lillard. And so how does he fit with Scoot Henderson? I mean, he's clearly the most talented guy on the board here, but do they look at an Amen Thompson? Do they look at an Asar Thompson? I don't personally think so, but I do think it's going to be a conversation, and knowing the way that front office operates, they're going to bring everybody in. They're going to want to take a look. They're going to kick the tires, and they're going to make the best decision possible. They're going to explore trades too. I mean, if Scoot is really there at 3, they could get some very enticing trade offers there. So I think that they're going to be exploring a million different options at this pick. And so I don't think anything is locked in here at 2 and 3.
Bobby, let's first start with the fit of Brandon Miller to the Charlotte Hornets. What do you think of that?
Jonathan hit it right on the head. You've got basically a small backcourt, certainly with LaMelo has, with his size, but then you've got Terry Rozier playing off him. And remember, you've got Miles Bridges. That situation hasn't been resolved. He's going to be a restricted free agent. PJ Washington is going to be a restricted free agent here. So some of your wings, their depth has been depleted here. So you could put Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball together. I think the interesting thing would be how much if both players are neck and neck, or if Scoot was a little bit, if there's some separation where the Hornets feel that maybe Scoot is the better player. Do you just go best available and less on need here, and then maybe figure it out down the road? And I think that's going to be something that, they figure out in the next month. But man, this is the most important draft for them, I think, in their franchise history, based on where they're picking. They've got another 1st-round pick. They've got 3 seconds here. It's a team that, basically kind of hit rock bottom this year. And you don't get the draft, number 2 all that often here. And we don't even know who's going to be owning the team. There's been reports certainly with Michael Jordan, as far as, imagine if they would have got number 1, right? I mean, you would have probably taken the for sale sign off here. So it's a huge, huge draft for them. But for right now, I agree with Brandon Miller at number 2.
Then what about Scoot Henderson with the Blazers and that fit alongside Damian Lillard?
Well, I'm interested to see if number 3 gets put in play, right? I mean, we know the Damian Lillard timeline here, and it doesn't feel like what they have aligns with Damian Lillard as far as Certainly Shaden Sharp, who they drafted last year, and then you have Anthony Simons. What do you do if it would scoot with Lillard and Simons already here? And what is the value of the third pick in the draft out there? I think that's what we'll learn a lot about in the next in the next month here. But I think if you're going to keep it, you just take the best available player at the time, right? And then you make it work, or maybe you move that, maybe you move some pieces down the road.
All right, guys. So now we move into the part of the draft where teams are weighing the rest of the top college players on the board versus the potential of the Thompson twins, who instead played in overtime elite league. So where do you think Houston goes with their number 4 pick, Jonathan?
Well, first of all, they have to be very upset falling from 2 to 4. And this really opens up a wide range of possibilities for them. I think they're going to look at both of the Thompson twins, Amen and Asar. I think they're going to look at Cam Whitmore. I think they're going to look at Anthony Black. Personally, I'm taking Amen Thompson. I think he's the player with the highest upside in this draft at this point. And I think his fit here is very strong alongside Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green. I think he can play with all those guys. He can guard the better, the tougher of the matchups, because he can guard 1 through 3. He brings you, that playmaking ability, the tremendous creativity, a 7-foot wingspan. I'm excited about Amen Thompson here, but they are going to kick the tires on a couple of other of these wings and guards at the same time.
I think what they do with their cap space, and they've been well known to say, like, we're going to go out and spend this $60 million on somebody or on 2 or 3 players. Then I think you can take more of a developmental project and let them kind of, come up the ranks. I mean, this is 3rd youngest roster in the NBA this year. I mean, you're going to have to go out and get some veterans here. And I think if you do, then you can take a player like him.
And as mad as Houston was to drop, what about the Detroit Pistons, who finished with the first record in the NBA? They had a 14% chance at the top pick and a better than 50% chance of landing in the top 4, but they fell down to pick 5. So, Jonathan, what are their options at 5?
Big yikes for this fall here. It's shocking. And then you go to a commercial break. You have to stew through it all. I think that they are going to look at a lot of players here. Honestly, there's no clear-cut pick at this point. I think both of the Thompson twins are in play. But I personally picked Jarris Walker just because I feel like having that defensively versatile 4-3-ish who doesn't need the ball, who can make an open shot, who can facilitate your offense a little bit, just make the extra pass, bring the physical tools that, that front office covets. I think that's attractive at this spot, but I also think that, a guy like Cam Whitmore is someone very interesting to look at. I think Asar Thompson is interesting to look at, but I went with Walker, but that does create a little bit of a log jam because he's really a natural power forward, and there's such a log jam of big men at this spot, with all these, discarded guys that they've assembled with Wiseman and Bagley. They've been playing Isaiah Stewart at the 4. So not an easy choice here, but I'll be very interested to see how it plays out. I think trades are going to be heavy in play here too.
Yeah, I think the likelihood is that he's going to be on the roster longer than Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley. I mean, I think that's how you have to look at it as far as the length of his contract here, even if there is a log jam, and then you got Jalen Duren and James Wiseman at the 5 here. I mean, you certainly can go the wing approach because of with Bojan Bogdanovic as kind of, we're going to hear his name again as far as certainly in trade rumors here, but I'm fine with Walker, even though as Jonathan said, there is a little bit of a glut at power forward.
All right, Jonathan, we're going to just round out the top 10 here. I want you to run through 6 through 10. Just give me the names, and then we'll kind of, sift through the ones that stand out with Bobby.
I'm going Asar Thompson with the Orlando Magic, Cam Whitmore with Indiana at 7, Anthony Black to the Washington Wizards at number 8, Grady Dick to Utah at number 9, and then Taylor Hendricks to Dallas at 10.
And Bobby, you've helped prepare prospects for draft interviews for this draft and in previous years. So what's the most interesting thing you've learned about this year's crop, and specifically that 10 through 6 that Jonathan just went through?
It's funny, Cassidy. It's Anthony Black. And it's, the perception that, you watched the game when they played Vanderbilt, when there was the altercation with Jerry Stackhouse on the court and they almost fought and everything like that. And you're thinking like, there's something, there, you think of a player differently than when you get to interview him and you get to talk to him. And he's a sweetheart. I mean, he is the nicest kid that I've talked to during this draft process. And for him, like the Wizards fit would be perfect. I think, especially if he can play, he's a big guard, can play point guard. That's something they've been looking for. They've basically patched it with Monty Morris and DeLon Wright here. But for him, his personality, I think, would fit in great. I think with all these players here, the one thing quick, there's so much. All these players had the opportunity to pick where they want to go, right? Whatever college they want to go. Now, except for Victor, they don't have that choice, right? They're not in control anymore as far as what organizations they go to. So there is a little bit of that unknown there.
All right. So Jonathan, now that we're through the top 10, which of those prospects, 6 through 10, do you have your eye on the most?
I think Asar Thompson is one of the most fascinating prospects in this draft, just because he could go as high as 3 potentially, and he could slide all the way into the 6, 7, 8 range. There is no consensus in the NBA about what to think about Asar Thompson, or really even what position he is. If you asked Asar Thompson, he'd tell you, I'm a point guard. I average 6 assists a game, but then you talk to NBA people, they say, hey, how good of a handle does he have? He's a little bit wild at times with his decision making. But I mean, NBA teams love the explosiveness. They love the defensive versatility. They love the fact that he's really improved his shooting as the year moved on. The comparing him and his brother Amen, again, there's no real consensus about who the best player is. I expect these two to end up, in a lot of the same workouts for the example, Portland at 3, Charlotte, even at 2. Very interesting to see, where Asar Thompson goes. I have him at 6 with Orlando. I think that's a great fit. Playing him alongside of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter, just allow him to spread his wings and play, any of those backcourt positions, bring that passing, the defensive versatility, the transition scoring. If he gets his jumper right, he could end up being one of the best players in this draft class.
Now let's put a bow on the lottery picks as a whole. Jonathan, can you run through 11 through 14 for me and why you think they fit best at that pick?
So at 11, I have Jordan Hawkins, Orlando's second pick. I just feel that they're going to go with the best shooter available. If Grady Dick is not on the board, I think I'll look at Hawkins here. He's a plug-and-play shooter, can come off screens, led college basketball in 3-pointers made, 39% national championship credentials. Orlando needs a guy like that on the roster. At 12, Oklahoma City. This is really the team that doesn't need anything, to be honest with you. The last thing they need is another young player. I would expect them to maybe explore trade opportunities. Maybe you package this 12 pick with, the dozen or so first rounders they have coming the next few years. Maybe you look to move up. Maybe you look to get a veteran, but I have them taking Cason Wallace right now in 12. I just think a guy like that who doesn't need the ball, who is one of the better defenders in this draft, who's a very unselfish player, brings toughness, feel for the game, spot up shooting, versatility. I think that's attractive with their situation, what they have on their roster right now. At 13, the Toronto Raptors, I'm looking at Nick Smith here. I think the Raptors need to swing for the fences and take the player with the highest upside that they can get at this slot. Nick Smith started the year off as the number 1 projected college player in the draft. He was a top 5 pick to start. He had an injury-plagued freshman season. I do not think we saw the best of Nick Smith at Arkansas this year, but his ability, at 6'5" to be a lead ball handler who can shoot off the dribble, pass off a live dribble, finish with creativity around the rim, make shots from all over the floor, bring you that intensity defensively. I think Toronto has to look at that with their backcourt situation, losing Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent potentially. They have a big gaping hole at that spot. And then at 14, New Orleans. I'm not exactly sure whether they need another rookie. Honestly, like with the season that they have, they're going to be looking at vets here at this spot. So maybe a trade could be in the cards. If they do stay at 14, I think a guy like Keontae George can make sense for them. Their offense got very stagnant last year when Zion Williamson was out. Having another guy in the backcourt who can create off the dribble, who can shoot off the bounce, who could pass off a live dribble, just bring you that scoring punch off the bench that they at times lacked. I think it could be attractive. I just don't know at age 19 if he fits their timetable. This is a franchise that wants to make the playoffs right away. So that's what I have to close out the lottery.
Bobby, your thoughts? What franchise are you circling there 11 through 14?
I think Orlando. I mean, I think, certainly it's like a bonus pick, right? You're already at 6 and now you've got the 11th pick from the Bulls here. And I think Jonathan hit it right on the head. I mean, Jordan Hawkins feels a need. You basically have Gary Harris playing the 2 here. They've ranked in the bottom in 3-point percentage. You get him, you can have him come off the bench, and it's more of a, developmental project. I mean, here's a guy who shot over 50% in the last 5 games during that NCAA tournament run here. So he's a shooter, certainly a player that they could use and could be the best available at that time.
Sounds like from you guys, it's going to be a really exciting and could be unpredictable night on June 22nd. So we'll see if the lottery teams agree with our experts in the actual 2023 NBA draft. In the meantime, these guys will keep you updated with the latest. For Bobby, Jonathan, I'm Cassidy. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.